office, so I have kind of a glare, but I think for most of it will be on the slides, so that will be hopefully easy. I would like this to be a little bit interactive today. I've slotted in some time for some questions. I don't know about all of you, but I find these Zoom calls extremely awkward, like I'm talking into like a massive black hole. So feel free to use the chat button if you have any questions. I've got Jenna on the phone with me at the IWCF office, and she's kind of help with moderate that piece. I don't want you to hesitate at all to ask questions. We're just going to kind of run through the overview of the grants process for IWCF, kind of some tips on writing a good grant, what we're looking for. I've got a little bit of historical data. I saw that, I saw that Lonnie joined. She sent me, I'm going to answer the question from your email in this presentation. So I'm just excited for a good conversation. I think most of our crowd here today is from rural communities, so we can spend a little bit of time talking about that. And if you're not, that's totally fine too, because it's pretty much the same information at both of our grant sessions. One thing I do want to say is this is not like the end of the conversation. So once we do this presentation and you have questions, the telephone line is open. You can always call me, reach out to us through the website. We've got lots of resources there. I left the corporate world about 15 years ago, so my computer skills are Marge, but I'm going to try really hard to share my screen and show you some of the things we've got going, but I'm not promising anything because my poor computer's also about that old. So if you guys could bear with me, that'd be great. And I look forward to just have a good conversation about grants. So questions so far, anybody? If not, I'm just going to launch right in, if that's okay. I've kind of broken this up into three parts. We're going to talk about a little bit about IWCF, a little bit about our grants process. Then we're really going to delve into like writing a good grant for us, like what we're looking for. And then at the very end, we've got some big changes this year. So if you've applied for a grant from us before, you'll see some different things. Hopefully we've made it easier for you, less attachments. And we've got a new online system to help us with our grant process. So I'm excited to kind of show you a little bit of that. And with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. And I was going to say, I meant to, Jenna, I'm sorry. This is the Rurals Community Nonprofit Grants Education Session, September 22nd, 2020. Okay. Okay, so here we go. This is, let's see, get my chat bar up so I can see you. This is kind of our cumulative total. So in the last almost 20 years, we've awarded over $4.8 million in grants. Last year was around the $215,000 mark. And every year we hope to grow our membership so that we can award more grants. This is me. So our mission, I kind of like to start with this because everything we do around our grants process really falls right back to our mission. So the Idaho Women's Charitable Foundation fosters educated philanthropy through collaboration, pooled resources, and individual giving to positively impact our community. We read this statement at the beginning of every grant session we do. Our grants committee looks at it as they're reviewing the grants proposals, and we always try to think in the back of our mind, is this grant application and this proposal, are our nonprofits collaborating? Are we using our pooled resources? And is everyone positively impacting our community? So here's what we are. For those of you that don't know, IWCF is a collective group of individuals who each contribute money to a pooled fund each year. So we've also had to be a little flexible with 2020. I don't know about any of you, but I'm ready for it to be over. And we have two membership options. So the first option is, and this is our most traditional way, is members contribute $1,125. They allocate $500 to a pooled fund grant, and that's the fund that all of you are applying for a grant from. Then they allocate $500 that will be distributed to any nonprofit that they choose. So I could have it go to my church or my child's school or really anything. And then $125 to the administration of IWCF. For 2020, we are taking off the individual designation. So if you'd like to join IWCF and want to be part of the collective giving pool, you can contribute $625, $500 to the pooled fund grant, and then $125 to the administration. And then, maybe use your individual designation toward in a different way. The overall goal with both membership options is to create a fund, a pooled fund that is significant enough that we can award between 6 and 7 grants each year to nonprofits in our 11 southwestern counties. Our main goal is to make positive change through thoughtful giving. And as I kind of go through the slides, I hope you see that's what we're trying to do. So let's talk last year. Last year we had 59 grants received. We only sent 40 to our committees. Our goal is to have 100% go to committee. We're going to kind of talk through some of the red flags and the pitfalls of why grants don't make it to the committee to be reviewed. And that's what I'd love for everyone to just really think through as you're writing your proposal. It's all about including the right information. Honestly, a lot of it has to do with proofreading, making sure all your attachments are there, making sure your financials are square. Last year, we had 9 requests in our financial stability category, 14 in education, 4 in environment, 8 in cultural arts, 13 in health, and 11 in rural communities. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about, we had a severe dip in our rural community applicants in the past year. And so I would love, of course, to see as many nonprofits in our outlying areas apply. We've also done some outreach this summer with some of the nonprofits directly. So if you've been on the receiving end of that, that's great. And if not, we now have your name so we can continue to outreach to you. So here's really what we do. And I wanted to just take a minute to let you know that on our website, and I'll show you a little bit later, we have a list of every single grant that IWCF has given in its last almost 20 years with a little description. So if you need a little inspiration, or if you were wondering if, is that going to work for a grant request, our website is a great place to go to just have a cup of coffee, take 20 minutes and just kind of scroll through what we have and haven't funded in the past. But here's really what we're looking for, an expansion of a program, either geographically or demographically. And I've got a couple of examples here. Last year, Boise Bike Project came to us. They had a successful program they'd been using at the Women's Correctional Facility where they were helping inmates learn to fix bikes. And their grant proposal was to move that program, expand that program to a new demographic. And so they moved it to the Men's Correctional Facility. We loved it. It's a tried and true program. It's been working. They were able to show some data. And then they're just taking it and rolling it out to a new group of users. Another example of an expansion of a program would be the Idaho Association for the Education of Young Children. You know, they came to us last year with a program they've been piloting. They've rolled it out in several counties. And so their grant was simply to add it to 6 more areas that they hadn't reached out to before. So both of those work. Both of those are great. You don't need to reinvent the wheel on a program, but we do ask that you look for a new user or a new demographic. Other things we like to fund, a critical need in the community. Several years ago, we funded a grant from Sweet Syringa Hall. It had been damaged in some weather, and so the grant was really around facility upgrades and helping put a new roof on a community center. Last year, we funded Desert Sage Health Centers in Mountain Home, just buying a van, literally so that they could transport patients for medical procedures from Mountain Home to Boise. So as you can see, just in the 4 grant proposals I've talked about, all over the board. So the sky is the limit when you're applying for a grant. when you're thinking through potential projects. You know, I think there's been a perception with IWCF that we don't fund operational expenses. And I probably talk to 2 or 3, 4, 10, 20 nonprofits every year about this. We do fund some operational expenses, but we ask that they be related to a program. So a great example is a couple of years ago, we worked with the Idaho Refugee Center. They created a speakers bureau, and their grant was to get the speakers bureau program off the ground. And part of that was to pay the coordinator's salary. Same thing happened last year at Cascade Medical Center in Cascade. They were expanding their behavioral health and mental health provider coverage. And so part of our grant dollars went to a salary for the PA that was going to handle that role. This year you'll see something a little bit different on our grant application. And, you know, 2020 has been crazy. I'm sure you've all felt it too. But if you had a program that maybe had to go away this year, or you had lost funds because of COVID, you know, we definitely tell us your story on that too. So all of these kind of things would be included in our things that we would fund. And this is just touching the iceberg. So I'd like to just encourage everyone, you know, go to our website, read through, call me, call other nonprofits that you know have received grants from us. And I think you'll get some good brainstorming and some good ideas of kind of things that we like to fund. So back to, we fund in 6 interest areas annually. So we, for 2020-21, we are awarding grants between $20,000 and $30,000. And we will award 1 grant in each category, at least 1 grant: cultural arts, education, environment, financial stability, health, and rural communities. And the definitions of all of these categories are on our website. They're also in the grant application instructions. The funding can be used over 1 or 2 years. However, we do ask that when the year that you receive the money that you use it. And we fund in 11 counties. We added a county actually out of our grant process last year. We had an application from Camas County, and we did a little bit of research. And I think for a long time, our organization felt like this was a county that was being covered by Wood River Community Foundation. And we realized they're just kind of not. And so, you know, after some conversation, we decided to add them. So we fund in 11 counties in Southwest Idaho. So that's Ada, Adams, Boise, Camas, Canyon, Elmore, Gem, Owyhee, Payette Valley, and Washington. Whoops, oh my gosh. So, and here I'd like to I've got a couple of these questions in here. So what if my organization is providing services in 4 counties that are covered by IWCF and 1 that isn't? Can I still apply? So the answer is yes, but I will tell you, we would like to see at least 90% of your funding go to the counties we fund. But we don't want you to not apply because you're going to spend a little bit of time outside our funding area. You know, I believe, so here's an example. This is a hypothetical example, but you know, your performing arts organization, we fund a vehicle for you to take instruments to rural communities. And you're going to stop by Jerome when you're out near Fairfield. And even though we don't cover Jerome because it's in Jerome County, but you're going to spend most of your time in Fairfield and Mountain Home and Boise, you know, we obviously still want, even if you're going to do a 1 stop out there, we'd still like you to apply. Would we like you to kind of explain that in your application? Yeah, it just helps our committees make like a more thoughtful decision as we're reviewing our grants. So let's talk rural communities. I think this is most of you. So towns and unincorporated areas with populations under 30,000. But wait, what if I'm based in Boise, but my services go to rural and non-rural communities? That's fine. But if you're based in Boise and you're applying in the rural community grant category, we just ask that the services covered by that grant must be delivered exclusively in a rural area. So this is, where should I apply? You're thinking to yourself, well, wait, I could apply in rural communities, or I could apply in health, or I could apply maybe even in education. So here's kind of our grant applications over the last 3 years. And I've limited it to the last 3 simply because we changed the way we did our application process in 2017. We used to have an extra step. So we kind of simplified. This stands for financial security here, education, environment, cultural arts, health, and rural communities. So I'm sure all of you can interpret this graph, but I think I'll help you if you don't mind. We always get a lot here. Education. We had a big spike in cultural arts, but it's kind of trickled off the last couple of years. Same with health. And then rural communities, we did a big push in 2019 when we started this grant, and then we had it, drop off in the last year. We are always traditionally receive the lowest number of grants in environment. So this might help you as you're thinking through which category you might want to apply. So with that, I want to stop sharing my screen for a minute because it can get a little PowerPoint heavy. And I just wanted to, open it up. Does anyone have, does anybody have any questions at this point? No? If you don't ask now, you can never ask again. Okay.
Hi, my name's Amy. Hi, thank you.
Hi.
Does IWCF spread out their grants over those areas? Like are there a certain number of grants that go per area, or is it really just top of the line and as long as they fall into one of those areas?
That's correct. It's absolutely based, the grant is based on the merit of the grant, not the area. But I will say, especially, I'm trying to think of a good example. So we had last year in health, Cascade Medical Center was one of our grant recipients. And one of the things the committee really, really liked about that was the previous year, Cascade High School had applied for a grant for some mental health work and programming amongst their students. And I think, it resonated with the committee that here's another nonprofit in the same community that's kind of extending the work, but to a different group. But that was really more on the merit of the grant. I think it was just coincidental that it ended up both being in Cascade.
Right.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. And do you have, so that graph that we just saw was about applications received, not grants awarded. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we'll get to grants awarded.
Okay.
So there is a grant.
Graph?
I wish we need more members. There will be though, unless we had a fluke and didn't have any applications, but we have traditionally awarded in each category 1 grant. So, and I'll kind of walk through our process on how we get to that final number. But so yes, we will award a grant in the rural communities category, 1 in cultural arts, 1 in education, 1 environment, etc.
Okay, so they do spread out, but there's more. You award more than 1 in each area.
We can. So we have, but traditionally it's just 1.
Okay.
But what happens is we get all the money in, right? It all comes in March-ish. And we look at the pool and we say, okay, here's how much money we have in the pool. Now we forecasted and we hope we'll have enough money for sure to do 6 grants at $30,000. That's kind of our baseline. And then as we are in the grants process, we say, last year we had we awarded an extra grant because we had enough members to do so. If we have the money, we're going to give the money. So that's kind of our philosophy in that. I have a question. Did I answer your question, Amy?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question in the chat, and it was stated that the grant money could be used in 1 or 2 years, but to use in the year it's awarded. I can explain that. So when you're applying for your grant, you are, say your grant is for $30,000, and you're going to spend it over 2 years. So the first year, we're going to give you $15,000, and we want you to spend that money when we give you the check. When we give you the $15,000, we'd like you to spend it. And then in the second year, we'll give you the other 15. But you say, oh, wait, but I'm just going to buy, I've got to do some facility upgrades. It's going to cost $30,000, and I can get it done in 12 months. Then in your grant, you just need to apply for a year. And we don't care. Like, our members don't care if you apply in 1 year or 2 years. We just want you to think through how are you going to budget and spend the money. So that's really what we're looking for on that piece. Sandy, if I don't see you, Sandy, because I've got a lot of people on my, hi, I see you now. Did I answer your question? Okay, all right, great. Any other questions on just our overall IWCF, kind of what we do?
This is a question, this is Amy again, a question about the awards calendar and the funding spending. Mm-hmm. Is it within 1 year from the award, or is it within the calendar year that it's awarded?
It's within, so what happens is you would be awarded and we'll talk through the timeline a little later, but you'd be awarded in May. Mm-hmm. And then you usually would probably have your check sometime, or your first check over the summer. Mm-hmm. And then you would, have your second check later in that year. And then it would it's like kind of like on a 6-month cycle. However, once you're awarded a grant from us, there's a group of ladies in IWCF that will work with you on everything. So they're going to
reporting and all of that.
Yeah. Okay. And they're going to call you and say, Amy, are you on track? Are you on schedule? And you'll say, oh my gosh, we've had to bump this up, or we've had to kind of push this back, but they'll work with you on the nuances of the payments and the funding. But our goal is to get you your money. Like, we want you to have it, spend it, and do something awesome.
Right. I was just wondering if the request to spend it within the year meant mm-hmm. within the calendar year. Like, if it's awarded in summer, do we have to spend it by January, or do we have a full calendar year from? Okay, got it.
By the time you get the grant.
Okay,
that was a long. See, this is why I should not teach high school ladies and men, any men on here. So, all right. So I'm going to move on. Any other questions on this part?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Jennifer, how about you go? And then Carolyn, you can go next, okay?
Okay. So we're a statewide organization, but we are focused on some projects in rural communities in your geographic area. Do you have some suggestions? Does that put us at a disadvantage to be a statewide organization with specific rural projects, or just describe how we would use that fund specifically in those communities and 100% of those funds in those communities?
Absolutely. Okay. And Idaho, God, they have the longest acronym on the planet. Idaho Association of the Education of Young Children. That's you know the acronym, right?
AEYEC.
Yes, that's exactly what they did last year. Statewide organization, but their grant is focused in Notice, Marsing, Emmett, just the smaller rural communities. But that is key when you're writing the grant. Just make sure and give us the detail around that.
Great, thank you.
Carolyn, did you have a question?
Yes, about rural versus health. Like for the Cascade hospital thing, did you call that a health grant or a rural grant?
So they applied in health this year, and that's where they were granted their dollars. And when Cascade High School applied, they applied in, I believe they were a rural community. So I think
is there an advantage?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you can look and see. I would go back to that chart and see where we get, if you have a grant that's an environment that impacts the environment, I would say apply in that category. Since I threw away my paper, but I think in the last 3 years, we haven't gotten more than 7. And so at the end of the day, your chances are better, right? Health and education are very, very popular grant categories, but it also all changes year to year. Kind of the year that Matthew Desmond came to Boise and spoke on his book Evicted, and the IWCF had their symposium on homelessness. you know, our grant requests in financial security that year went through the roof because it's on everybody's mind, right? And everybody's thinking about how can I make a difference in my community. So I think it's, honestly, I wish I could predict like where everybody was going to apply, because it would really make the next couple of months just easier to plan, but we don't know. And all I can do is share the data with you. So.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. All right, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen here. Any other questions? We've got several other opportunities. So if I missed you, I'll catch you. Okay. All right. Oh, shoot. Okay. Hold on. Oh, it just took a little longer. Okay, sorry. Getting all stressed out over here. Okay, so this is all directed to all of you on the call. So how do you know if you can even apply for a grant with us? Your organization must be one of the following. So a 501c3, an educational institution, a government agency, or a tax-exempt religious entity. And you know what? I'm leaving something out on here, and that is, I believe there's a separate categorization if you're a medical facility, and I will update the slides and send that information out to you. In order to apply for a grant from us, we do have some financial requirements, and I want to just talk about this head on, because every year, this is the reason that the majority of our organizations don't make it to the committee for review. So we ask that as an organization, you either have a year of audited financials, and that would be, you know, your organization's financials audited by a accounting professional. We ask that be your local audited financials. If you do not have local audited financials, we ask that you submit your national, but we really need a compelling reason why. And I'm sure all of you know, the reason is we're trying to figure out, we want to make sure if we're going to give you money in your organization, that you have the sustainability to execute the grant that we're funding. So audited financials are one way to show us that. Another way to show us is by submitting a 990. A 990, for those of you that don't know, is an IRS form that provides the government with a snapshot of your organization's activities for that year. You know, it outlines how much money you're taking in and how much money you're spending. An organization that has 50,000 or more in gross receipts and is required to file an exempt organization information return must file the 990. So if you are an organization that has over $50,000 in gross receipts, you probably have one of these. Or you can file the Form 990. There's several different nuances of that form, but we will take that as kind of proof of your financial security. However, and my business and finance committee knows this inside and out, but in some cases you would submit your financials to the IRS and you get a postcard back, but you can't just submit us a copy of the postcard. And the reason is it doesn't tell us anything. And so you know, the whole idea behind financial requirements is we just want to make sure that you're, you know, that you're sound, that you aren't paying your executive director, you know, 93% of the money that you take in, or that you're taking money in, or that you're spending money. And so the financial requirements for us, you know, we're trying to simplify them. It used to be that you had to have 2 years of audited financials, but now we just need one or a 990. And if you have questions on this piece, we can definitely help walk you and your organization through this piece of our process. So we've talked a lot about the grants, and kind of I gave you some examples of what we do fund, but this is the list of things that we don't fund. So we don't fund endowment or scholarship funds, fundraising, annual funds, or undesignated scholarships. We don't fund individuals. So if your neighbor is running across the United States and is doing it 10 cents per mile, that wouldn't be a grant request that we would be able to fund. We don't fund incomplete or late applications. Hopefully with our new software, there will be no incomplete applications, because you literally have to submit something in order to turn in your application. So we're trying, but they do have to be submitted by the deadline. We don't fund anything designed to influence government officials or lobbying groups. We don't fund anything that require participation or membership in a faith-based organization. I just want to touch on this. You can be a faith-based organization, but you can't discriminate on who your clients are. We don't fund undesignated capital campaign contributions, and we don't fund applications from an organization that's currently in our cycle. So if you received a grant last year, you're still in our grant cycle, and so you can't apply this year. So with that, do we have any questions, nonprofit eligibility, nonprofit financials, or funding categories?
Sure, it's Amy again. In the funding category, the undesignated capital campaign, how likely is IWCF to fund a designated capital campaign? And for you, does that designation simply mean that we ask for specifics around this room, these supplies? Exactly.
Yes. Yes, that you've answered your own question.
Okay. And with the application itself, in terms of sculpting the application should the application be more about the whole project, and then this would be the designation, or is it better to write the application specifically about what the designation piece would be?
It's much better to be as specific as you can and write it about exactly what you want.
Okay.
A little history is great. We want you to tell us your story.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is we're going to look at what are our dollars going to go directly to?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we want to hear about. Is it going to be this amazing kids room at the library with all this new furniture and that's what the money's going to, and these, I don't know, sensory books? That's what our committee's really wanting to know. Okay. Ariana submitted, can you submit more than one application? Yes, actually you can submit more than one application in different categories. However, when you cannot have two applications on the ballot. So, and I'll kind of get through how we vote, how our membership votes at the end, but you cannot have more than two on the ballot. And you cannot apply for more than one in one area. So cultural arts, you can't have two applications in that area. Okay. All right. Questions? All right, I'm gonna try to share my screen again. This is like,
Jen?
yes?
Going back to that, you can't submit two in the same category, but could you, like, if I'm submitting something and I'm really debating whether it falls into health or rural, can I submit the same application in different categories?
No.
Okay.
No. You have to submit a different project.
Okay.
Let me just answer that in a really, no.
Okay.
because we don't want to decide for you.
Okay.
Like our goal is to decide within that group what's the best, and so we're making you do the heavy lifting on that.
Okay.
Okay, let me see if I can. I guess I have to go back each time. Okay. So let's just talk about what we're really looking for, and I'm going to kind of, well, we're getting close, but let's kind of speed through this because I don't want to keep you too long. But we're looking for grants that address a critical need, have a plan for sustainability after our funding. We do like to contribute a substantial portion of funding to a project. So back to Amy's question about the library, say she's going to write a grant for a new kids room at the library, and it's going to cost $40,000. And she asks for 30, so that's IWCF is contributing 75% of the funding to that project. That's great. If it's going to cost $100,000 and she's asking for 20, we're contributing 20%. It might be a great grant proposal, but maybe the other one in that category, they're allowing us to fund the whole thing. I think those are some of the things our committee looks for as we're reviewing the applications. Here's really what we want. The grant application can be overwhelming, especially if you're a smaller organization, but we want you to tell us, just tell us your story. How did it start? Have you done your research? Who are you going to serve? Who are your collaborators? Tell us about your organization, history, leadership, expertise. Please don't be afraid to tell us. We want to know. We're going to research you anyway. So if you can help us out, that'd be great. When we talk about critical need, we want you to explain it to us in a way that you can describe the need, and we'd really like it if you can use some data to tell us the story. Here's an example, McCall Music Society. We have X amount of kids that really want to learn how to play the cello, and we have 0 cellos, and we'd like to expand our program. There's your need right there. Kids that can't get access to instruments, we want money to provide the access. We like to know who else is helping you. We like nonprofits that are working with other nonprofits or other collaborators, whether it be a city or neighbors or, and we like to hear about that. And then, if you are doing something innovative and different, we like to hear about that too. If you're talking through the critical need, we want to know, are you bringing a tested model to Idaho? Are you expanding a current model? Is this something you saw in Salt Lake and you thought, oh, this would be a really good fit here? So just kind of telling your story through the grant request will help us really understand what you're funding. So how should you tell us the story? I think most of you might be familiar with this, goals, objectives, and then how you're going to evaluate it. So we want to know the big picture. We want to know how you're going to measure it, and then how you are demonstrating that that you can meet your objectives. Are you going to just go out and survey people, or are you pulling the data from a database, or are you going to look at the end of the year and see, oh, we've impacted X amount of people? We want to know. So I want to give you a couple examples, goals and objectives. A goal, no child will suffer from polio. It's pretty far-reaching, right? The objective might be, 90% of children entering first grade in West Ada will be fully immunized against polio by X date. So it tells us exactly, okay, in my proposal, this is exactly what I want to do. All children will learn to read and write in elementary school. That's pretty far-reaching. The objective might be 80% of Melba third graders will pass the state reading test. And then you're going to go on in your application to tell us how you're going to do that. When you talk through evaluation, sorry, I'm going to look at my notes here because I have some good notes on this. We're talking about how are you going to evaluate what you say you're going to do. So if you're going to transport 100 patients from Mountain Home to Boise in a year for dialysis, how are you going to measure that? And that's kind of what we want to know on the back end of the grant. And when we're awarding grants, we look at that and we say, okay, they've got a good plan to let us know that they're going to be successful, that they've got a target, that they've got a deadline. It helps us feel a little bit more secure that when you get your money, you've got a game plan ready to go and spend it. So here's kind of how, when you finish the grant request, this is a real simplified form, but you'll state your goal. I took the children will want to learn to read and write. your objective, 80% will pass the reading test. And then here's your evaluation. So you're measuring it against, the Idaho passing grade of 70% on the reading indicator. Your target are the third graders, and your target date is the date of the reading test. So it's just we can kind of look at that and say, okay, this is great. We're going to give, Melbian, people in Melba, who are working on this reading grant, we know that they're going to be complete by this date, and will have touched X amount of people. Any question? I'm not going to unshare my screen, but any questions on just goals and objectives at this part? I mean, for those of you that have written grants before, this probably makes a lot of sense. But if you haven't, and this feels like confusing, this would be something that afterwards I would love for you to call me, and I can definitely even connect you with one of our other members who is fantastic at this, that can just kind of help you work through to make sure you're getting this information in your grant request. Okay, let's talk about budgets, because, I talked before about, financials are what is our biggest pain point on our grant application. So we want to see, and I'm going to use Jennifer from Idaho Public Television. This is a great example. So she's a statewide organization. So instead of a national budget, she has a statewide budget, but she probably also has, she may have a localized budget for her chapter that's in Idaho Falls, which, bad example, it's not our funding area, for McCall. So what we want to see is, we don't really want to see the big national statewide budget. We really want to see the local budget, the chapter budget. What we're looking for when we look at your budget is to make sure you're a sustainable organization. We're looking at your cash flow. We're looking at your expenses versus your income. We've had budgets that literally were just an Excel spreadsheet, and that is completely okay. It is good when they balance themselves, because that gives us some little consternation when they don't. So we're going to ask you for your local budget, and that's what we're looking for. We're also going to ask you for your project budget. So this is what you're going to spend on your actual project. So I'm going to pick on Amy with the McCall Library. The organization budget for the McCall Public Library might be in the millions of dollars, but the project budget for the money that she's asking for IWCF might be $40,000. So that's what we want to see. And if you would, if this is not your forte, reach out to whoever in your organization, is doing the expenses and the accounting, and have them help you work through this. This does not have to be complicated. And I feel like in the last couple of years, since I've kind of been involved with the grants committee, some of our favorite organizations make this a really complicated piece, and it doesn't have to be. We really just want to see, are you taking in what you say you are? Are you spending what you say you are? And how are you going to spend our money? So we
Jen,
provide.
can I ask? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Specifically, so if you're partnering, so like the library is a tricky one, because we would be applying as the library, the McCall Library Foundation. So we're a separate 501c3. Mm-hmm. But the project itself, the overall project budget is sort of housed by the city of McCall. Mm-hmm. So would you want to see both our organizational the foundation's budget and the whole project budget, and then a budget for the piece that we're asking for?
I think really what we really want to see is, we want to see the organization you're applying for. So the Friends of the Library, we want to see your budget, right? And then maybe your budget's a little bit lean, right? Because you're supporting a city entity, which happens all the time. We see it all the time. Okay. But then in that project budget, I think you can add some color to that, right? So you can explain, hey, this is part of a bigger process, but we don't really care about the city of McCall's library budget. I mean, when it all comes down to it, we want to know that Friends of the Library is going to stick around, and that you're sustainable enough to spend the money that we're giving you. Does that make sense?
Yes, got it. Thanks.
Okay. So just some tips. We give you a template. Just know your numbers. This is where it's great to go back to your CFO, your accountant, the volunteer that manages your QuickBooks. explain things that might be misunderstood. This happens a lot when we have a national organization with a really hefty budget and a local chapter that maybe isn't as strong, but we all maybe assume that they're localized, so they have a big budget. Just explain things. When we read these, we actually have 8 women that sit and read every single piece of financial information on every grant, and they read every footnote. So it's totally okay to say, this number might look a little weird because of X. Please check your math. If you're, applying in December for a May grant, what if I estimate wrong? Guess what? It's totally okay. We're looking really for, we think you're doing the best you can do to apply for a grant from us. And so, all we're asking is that you try to estimate. We had, estimate correctly. We had a recipient last year or the year before, they applied, and then what they were going to buy was just much cheaper, right? And they had no way of knowing, but they had estimated, and that's where our assessment committee can really work with you and help you. Now, we can't give you more money in your grant, but we can definitely help you within the grant itself. I just really quickly wanted to go through, read the instructions, follow the instructions, read the instructions again. Your audience is, we have about 80 members of IWCF that are on our grants committee. Those 80 members can be from the ages of, 18 up to 100. They can have all different kinds of backgrounds, some college educated, some not, some teachers, some scientists. We have a little bit of everything. So it's really great if you can write your grant to really the common person. Help us understand, what you're trying to do. Please proofread. If for some reason you don't receive a grant from us, please reapply. I was going to pull the numbers, how many people have applied and reapplied and gotten a grant. Sometimes maybe your competition's pretty steep. Maybe your organization is a little young. We've had a couple instances where really great projects, but just probably needed another year to do some groundwork before they were ready to roll. So, don't get discouraged, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So this is my favorite slide. Why does accuracy matter in my application, or why should I proofread? So this is the percent of applications we've been able to send to the committee. We're getting better. Last year we sent 68% to our committee. And like I said on that first slide, we want to send 100%. And the reason applications don't get sent to committee is I applied for more money than you're willing to give me. I applied for less money than you're willing to give me. I applied outside of your funding area. I didn't attach a budget. I just, I didn't attach my goals and objectives. So as you kind of, as you look at this, I would love to get this number at least up to 90% this year. I think we can do it. And our new application platform is going to help us with that. So if all of you, as you apply for your grants, just double check. And just in summary, we want you to tell us your story, be persuasive, give us the details, use data. We really like data. We've got a lot of scientists in our mix, and they're awesome because they help us, really quantify these grant requests. But we also want projects that are making an impact in each of your communities. So you kind of got to tell us both the story on that. Questions on just, goals and objectives, financials. Anybody? I think I have any chat. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move on. So here's our timeline. Let's see, we're getting close. The applications are due mid-December. At that point, IWCF will look at it. Is it complete? Is it on time? Are all the attachments uploaded? If I could give you any piece of advice, I would try to do it a week ahead of time. Try to do it a month ahead of time. We have 2 fantastic women that work in our office, Joe and Jenna, and they are a wealth of information if you run into a technical bind. So, but you know, it's tough when it's like an hour before the application is due. If you could try to get it done a little bit ahead of time, and then if you do run into a bind, it just gives us more time on our end to help you get it uploaded. I don't think there'll be any technical issues, but I'm just throwing that out there. So then in December and January, we have our organization reviews all the grants. The first thing that happens is we go through, we have kind of a steering committee that goes through and we throw out anything that's, I say that really crass, I don't mean it, because usually there's like a tier involved, but we take out any grant proposal that was not in one of our counties, that the dollar amount wasn't correct, that honestly just really the application was incomplete. They didn't include all the information. It's a tragic, sad meeting, and I would prefer never to have it. So, but once that happens, then we have a group of 8 really talented women that come from the finance world, and they're going to go through every grant request and they review all your financials. So they're going to look at the whole organization's sustainability, the project sustainability, they're going to make sure you verified your current tax status, and then they'll kind of review the budgets. Once Business and Finance Committee looks at the grant, they are going to assign each of the grants, just kind of a score. And if you're new and your organization doesn't have a lot of history, that's okay. We don't say, oh, we can't fund you. But what we're looking at is we're saying, hey, is this organization going to be around long enough to, disperse the money that we have? And that's really kind of what our thought process is, having Business and Finance look at this. We're also looking to make sure, hey, you're not doing anything illegal or unethical, or, your executive director isn't vacationing in Hawaii, 4 times a year on your nonprofit's dime. We kind of look through all those things and just make sure you are who you say you are on paper. The next thing that happens is we have about 80 of our members. I'm going to get it up to closer to 90 this year. And we divide out into groups of committee, and each committee takes an interest area. So you'll have 10 people looking at, say you're applying an environment, 10 people will read every single grant and environment. They will kind of score them, and then they will get together and they will talk about it. And they will talk about the pros and cons of each application. They'll look at the health of your organization. They'll look at the project, who it's impacting, what critical need is it helping. They'll compare it back to our mission. They'll do some local research. And then most of all, we talk about it. And, this is a tough time, because by the time a grant application's made it to our interest area committees, they're pretty good. And they're doing some pretty awesome things. So after our committee's review, each committee will select about 3 or 4 applications, and we schedule you for a site visit. And so this is when members from the committee will come to your organization. They will make sure you are who you say you are in person. They'll look around your facility. If you say you're requesting something for a room and they walk in and it's already all been done, they're probably going to ask you some questions about that. But it's really a chance for you or your clients or your board members to just kind of tell us your story in person. And this kind of helps our members get a better sense of, how the grant will actually be executed. So after the site visit, and all of you, I encourage you to go to our website, which I'm going to show you if we have time, and you'll recognize some of the organizations on there that have received grants. Call them and ask them about the site visit if you're interested, or you get to that point in the process. It's just a really touching time, both for our nonprofits and our members. So then in March and April, after the site visits, our interest area committees will narrow the grant applications down to 2 per interest area. And based on the site visit, based on their discussion. And then at that point, we put them on a ballot. So all of our members receive a ballot. It has 12 organizations on it, 2 per interest area. We have, our grants committee holds member Q&A sessions. They tell the membership about the site visits. They talk about the grants. And at the point where your proposal's sitting on our ballot, it means it's really awesome. We want to fund it. And our goal is to move 2 proposals to the ballot that, you know, would be fantastic. And then because we are a collective giving organization, we open it back up for a membership vote. And traditionally we've had, I think last year we had 98% of our members vote. So that happens in April. And then in May, we award the grants. So any questions on the timeline? Okay. I want to just, I'm running a little short on time. I have 1 slide left, so if you need to jump off, please do. But this year we have a new software program, and we've spent, Jenna in our office has spent probably the better part of a year researching this. It's called Slide Room. It's an integrated software. Hopefully it'll be easier for our members to evaluate grants and then also for you all to apply. We've simplified our application a little bit. So less attachments, 1 year versus 2 year audited financials. And then we've given you some more opportunities to tell us your story. So I wanted to just show you briefly. I think I can get there. So here is Slide Room. I started my grant for Dog Lovers Unite this morning. And this is just kind of, you know, it kind of walks you through exactly how we are asking you to fill out our application. You'll notice there's some asterisks. That means it's required. So hopefully, you know, you'll fill it in with the right information, some information. And then the best part about this application is different is it saves as you go. So if you get started in it and you need to take a break or need to do something else, this will save what you have. The other nice thing is if you apply 1 year with us and say you don't get a grant, you can come back and log into your account and all your information is there, your contact information and your IRS status and that kind of thing. So that in itself, we hope will save you a little bit of time. But this is kind of what Slide Room looks like. It's not super fancy, but hopefully it will be just a little bit easier than our past jot form application. On our website, which is here, you will find this tab Grants, which I would love to encourage all of you to go to. This has all of our instructions, how to fill out the application. It has tips. It has templates if you're looking for a template, if you don't have one. Here's how you can start your application. It gives you some tips, you know, to register, how to register your organization. If you come down here to, this is a grants history of every grant that IWCF has ever given. You can search by area, you can search by all grants recipients. So I encourage you, like I said, grab a cup of coffee, go out, check out our website, do a little bit of reading, brainstorm with other nonprofits in your area that have received grants from us. I think that would be helpful. And with that, I know I ran through it quick, but what questions do you have? Any? You're all going to be pros. I have a list now, so I can see, I can double check and make sure you all will submit a grant. And if you haven't, I'll be following up with you with a little note, like October-ish.
Jen, there are a few questions in the chat that came through if you want to check those out.
Yes, I will. Okay. Yes, Maria. I see you. And yes, the slides will be available on our website. And then actually, can you download them from there, or would you rather we emailed them? I think we can email a link to it. How's that, Jenna? Can we do that? Okay, we'll email you a link afterwards. And there's some speaker notes in there too that, you know, feel free to read through all of those too. That might help. Do we reference GuideStar profiles? You know, we haven't used that as a tool, Jennifer, but that's a great idea. You know, I take that back. Some of our committees may use that just in their research of the organizations. Yes. Let's see. If we get on the app app in early and there's something missing, do you let us know that we can fix it? So actually we do. But you have to have it in pretty early. Last year we actually put a deadline out there and we only had 8 groups apply, but yes, we'll let you know. We'll put a deadline out, but I'm going to say it's going to need to be in by like probably right before Thanksgiving. And then yes, we're more than happy to let you know. As a retired reporter, proofreading is vital. Yes, who said that? WJMOTI. I don't know who you are, but thank you. And so please, everybody proofread. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Let's see. Yes, Amy, that's fine. If your project has a much higher budget, but IWCF could fund just a little bit of it, that's what the little bit is what we want to hear about. Cindy. So, I think Cindy's question is, you may want to fund more of a project and not be part of many partners. I think what we're looking for is we want to see that you as an organization are collaborating in your space. You know, who are you working with to serve your clients and to serve the people in your space? That's the partnership we're looking for. But for the project itself, we don't mind if you have other partners, but we do like to be we like to fund the majority of the project. Did that make sense, Cindy? I can't see you. I can see your name, but I can't see you, so I don't know.
I'm sorry, I had to step away. I had a phone call from a partner. So what was your question again?
No, I was just answering your question, where you say you want to fund more of a project and not be part of many partners. What we're wanting to see is we want to see your organization as a collaborator, right? Are you working with other people in your community? Are you doing, or are you operating just completely in a silo? We want to see that you're, we want to know how you're partnering in the space that you're providing services. When we say we want to fund more of a project, we don't mind you having partners, but we do want to fund the majority of the project.
Got it.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. If not, call me. Let's see. I think. Yep. Okay. I think, did I get everyone? Oh, category of health, refer to nutritional needs. That would be yes, Maria. And on the application instructions, there is a very specific detailed description of each of one of our categories. So if you have any questions, definitely reach out. And Emily, yes, the information in the next session is the same. Okay, so what questions? Any other questions? My cell phone, if you'd like to write it down, it's a cell, so it's area code 817-239-0767. Okay, you can text me, you can call me. Now, if I don't call you back right away, you do know this is all volunteers, so just give me like a day or two. And then you can always email me too, if you think of anything. But our whole goal is we want you to be successful. Like, I want every one of you to write an awesome application grant request. And I really want to fund everything, but we can't. But I want you all to go through the experience and just, submit something that you think is awesome, because the best part of this is learning about all the awesome work that you're doing out in the communities where you're at. It's a tearjerker for our members, and it's for sure for the grants committee. It's life-changing just for some of our members to see and have their eyes open to new things going on in our communities. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. And other questions? Okay, I feel like I talked at you the whole time, so you're welcome for that. But other than that, I guess we'll sign off for now, and please reach out to the office, to me. This is not the end of the conversation. So I have one more.